Welcome to the podcast where we discuss all matters financial planning and investing. This content contains general information only and may not be relevant to everyone. Please contact our office to make sure and determine if this is relevant for you. Hi and welcome to the podcast. I'm David Lockton and I'm joined with my co-host Cole Eccles. How are you, Cole?
Good yourself, Dave.
Very well. And today we're talking about really kids and investing. And it's probably one of those things that's coming up a lot. Our clients ask us many times. And what have you noticed? What are people looking for in that space?
Yeah, I think more and more, I suppose, kids are working, part-time jobs, and grandparents saving them. And so generally it starts out with a savings account. A lot of kids and the old, the Commonwealth Bank account they had in the schools thing, and started there. So I think there's such a lot of information out there and people more aware of making the most of their money. So we've had a lot of questions around our investing on behalf of kids. And generally it starts with a smaller amount. So anything that's like a pool type of investment which allows you to put smaller amounts away over time. So anything like managed funds, or there's things like most banks offer it, or there's heaps out there on the net about little what they call micro investing. So you can start off with as low as $50 or $25, and it's just you don't have to put it every week, but ideally it's something you want to put away on a weekly, monthly basis, small amounts, and over time build that money up and start as young as they can.
Yeah, there's two sides of it, isn't it? It's like trying to get your kids probably into investing. I think there's a lot more options these days just from investments in general. If you go back 20 years ago, it's a lot easier to get into investments and there's a lot more variety. So if you're trying to get your kids early on trying to invest in an amount and understanding their cash flow, I know with my kids that they've had their battles and one's good, one's not so good, and everything in between. And I think most people will probably have those. So probably getting your kids to understand money and the value of the money. And it's when we were kids, money actually, you got it in your hand. So you got paid $10, $20 and you got your pay packet in your hand. So it was something tangible. But these days it's all electronic. Do you know what I mean? So it's probably got a different feel about it, and there's so much more things to buy, I think, a lot easier, or there's a lot easier way to buy things. So getting kids these days not trapped on the spending game, but getting in the investing game.
I think because everything's electronic, and that's kids nowadays, everything is electronic. And I think it's like the point you made about starting young, because it's like I speak to my kids as well, and it's hard they want to see results straight away. But if you start really young, and it's like a game almost with the kids, but after 5, 6, 7, 8 years that there's some real results, and they're a bit older to understand, that could really get them on the path of really getting into understanding the value of money, how things work and building. I think that's a good lesson to start with kids and get them involved in, not make it a game, but get them involved in it. Yeah. And that will help them on their financial journey, hopefully.
Yeah, I think the younger they are in that scenario, making it something that they can get some interest in. Look, some people have just got no interest in money.
No,
full stop. But then there's plenty that actually do have an interest, and starting at a younger age, depending on the scenario, depending on where the money's coming from as well. I always talk about if the money's coming from the parent mainly, and they're going to put a lot of money into something. Obviously, let's say if they wanted to save up for when their kids coming to have a car or looking to buy houses and all those sorts of things, longer term, they've got to be putting a considerable amount in, and they've got to take their own financial situation into account if they're doing that, if it's a considerable amount of money, because if they have home loans and so forth, they're paying interest on that money, even though they're putting it into the kids' account as such. One of the things, a lot of people are slave to the bank for 30 or 40 years, and that can extend that scenario. Yeah, but if the money's coming from your child's old enough to work, they're working and so forth, and they start investing, obviously if they're using their money, that's a different scenario. Grandparents, money from birthdays, Christmases and all that sort of stuff can actually really set some patterns early on that I've seen we've got some clients who are incredibly good with money, way better than I ever have been in my life. He's like, man, have you not spent it? And then you've got some that are hopeless. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? They earn a lot of money but spend everything. Yeah. So really just understanding where the money's coming from and then getting into the environment. There's so many different options how to invest. Probably a lot of people will have struggle how to invest in general. Yeah. What are some of the options out there that they would have?
There's things like, obviously, if you're investing on behalf of a child, a lot of people think about the tax implications for themselves, because obviously the kid's only young, under 16, whatever it is. Things we've seen a lot of is, a common one is like what's called an investment bond, where it's a tax-paid investment and you take the tax out of your own name. But like what I've seen a lot in my group my social group is like micro investing, where it's all online, it's very small amounts, most banks offer it, and that just gets, and if I look at my own, particularly my daughter, so she's 17 now, and her aunt puts money away for her every year for like birthdays, Christmas and that. And she's done it the same for my son. And when he got to 18, he had, I think, maybe $2,500 in there. But they've done it over a long period of time.
Yeah.
So I think to myself, is like, if that money had gone into something else that perhaps had better than bank returns over 10 years, what could his $2,500 have been? So I think it's that, it depends on what you're comfortable with. But definitely long-term, micro investing is a thing that I've seen a lot of. But traditionally, it's bank accounts that people start out with because it's the easy one.
Yeah, back in the day, we actually saved. This is way back when my firstborn was. It was 25 years ago now. Shit. But we were putting $100. I think it was a week away for their education, and that went into a bond. I didn't know back in the time whatever that was.
Yeah.
But it was quite interesting. It paid for all of his secondary school and so forth, or a lot of it. But if I had actually invested the money myself, generally just in a normal fund or so forth, it would have done a lot better. There's just so many hidden fees, traps and so forth, and people going into investments. So,
and just on that, with the listening beware. So there's a bond out there for particularly for education funding, but there is some, I wouldn't say traps, but that money has to be used for education funding. So if you start putting money away for your child's university education and then he decides when he's in grade 10 that he doesn't want to go to university and then suddenly your money's locked in.
Yeah, we done it for 18 years. And I always said to my wife, what are we doing this for? And actually, school fees were a big chunk of change down the track. So it actually worked out okay because we probably wouldn't have had the money. So it was one of those things back a lifetime ago. If I had it over again, I'd definitely do it differently. I think you've got the main one when the kids are younger and you're talking about a small amount of money, generally it's either going into a savings account or then you're going investing into the share market, which you touched on bonds. Investment bonds can work really well for really high income earners. If it's low income earners, it's a different scenario from a tax perspective. It has a little bit of limitation around some of the things that are available. But anyone watching this, you can check out investment bonds and see how they can actually work for your child. Then you've got investing into the share market, and there's a lot of big institutions that make it easier to be able to open accounts for a minor. So under 18, you can't invest unless you're over 18. So there's an adult actually investing for them. And they've got a lot of different options these days, don't they?
Oh, yeah. There's definitely, it's almost, it's like anything an adult can invest in, a child can invest in if you choose the right structures. Yeah, definitely. I think the common ones are, when I say common has been the ones in the past, which is investment bonds, but I think the landscape has changed a lot now and there's a lot more options. Like I said, you can get to, I know of one where it's as little as $20 a week and you get into an ETF that's broad-based. You can choose international, Australian, and you can put away as little as $10 a week almost.
Yeah, there's a lot more options and there's a lot of funds out there, or a lot of platforms out there that have no fees and that. So one of the things when you're looking to invest in these things is really getting the fees down as much as humanly possible. Generally, all investments have some sort of fees. They're not going to be free, but how you can limit that depending on what platform you use. And going into the share market is generally the most attractive to get a bit of a return rather than the bank accounts as such, as they fluctuate over time and can even be losing money against inflation over time. But then you've got there's one thing that a lot of people have been talking about lately, and it's like they're really fearful of how their kids are going to get into the property market. And what I found is that people are looking at how to get their kids into the property market, really probably specifically, before they actually look after themselves. So their kids are 10 years old, 15 years old. What age would generally someone buy a house?
Probably mid-20s, you'd think.
I think that's back when I bought my first house. I would have been 24 or 25 with my wife. So it's generally a long way away, and property prices in general are going to go up, but everything goes up. The cost of living, the cost of everything, but also wages. If you've got a young couple now, like professional couples or just any general couple, a lot of them earn 80, 90, 100 grand per annum pretty quickly. And if you've got two people doing that and living at the bank of mum and dad's for a while, you can actually save up. It's like I just know from my kids, I think my daughter's pretty keen to move out. Her, and if she moves with her partner, like they'd be earning considerable amount of money. If you're paying rent and so forth, that's pretty expensive these days. Where if you rode off mum and dad for a while, you can actually save. So I think it's all relative. I remember my first home loan was 140. I bought the house for $140,000. I think we had a $120,000 loan. I was petrified. Imagine going out with $700, $800 million loan these days is really difficult for kids. But getting into that sort of space, how can you help your kids out in that area, do you think?
Oh, there's different ways. There's people accessing using, obviously, if you've got cash around. I know ones of using like money cash you've got, like term deposits, and putting that up as security. There's using equity release in your property, going guarantor. That's don't know. Well, there's different ways you can do it, but yeah, it's depends on the individual and what their circumstances are. But yeah, the three ones or the two ones, I wouldn't say using necessarily. The ones I come across is giving cash or putting up an asset like a term deposit or something as security. And I know one as well. I know in my situation, we had a house and bought a second house, and then the father-in-law gave us a loan, so to speak. He used cash to put in and then you paid him back, whatever. So it's different ways you can do, depend on individuals and how you want to go.
I think it comes down to, especially when the kids get older as well, their capability to pay back.
Yeah,
huge sum of money, realistically as well. I think we're lucky in Australia. I think we feel it's a right that everyone can own a home and so forth, depending on the value and so forth. And that's probably getting out of reach, which is true for a lot of people if they haven't got decent jobs or in a partnership. And there's a lot more. I don't know numbers wise, but it feels like there's more singles than couples these days.
Which makes it harder.
Which makes it like if you got twice the income, obviously you should be able to save a bit easier. You would feel you would be able to. Where if you're single, it's quite hard to pay the cost of living and save a whole bunch of money as well at the same time. And I've got clients that have called me about, we want to help our kids get into houses, and then a lot of kids these days are buying houses with other kids, or it might be partners, people not married yet, but the fear of missing out or the fear that the property market will go up so high that they never can get into it. So what I see is just in that scenario, recommendation is just making sure you're protected and getting, I always see probably loans to families, not a great idea.
We had a loan agreement. He was all over it.
There's always got to be a loan agreement and a covenant over if you are loaning the money first mortgages and getting some advice from a lawyer to make sure you are protected, because you just see it all the time. Not everyone is how you would react or behave, and you just see a lot of things go wrong. Helping your kids in many ways, helping them save, getting some money into savings and all that, I feel is a great idea. One of the really big things about money and kids and investing in general is they need to learn so it becomes a life skill. And what I mean by that is if a 25-year-old won Tats Lotto tomorrow, generally the money's gone pretty quick because they never generated the money, so they don't know how to be responsible with it. I think investing and helping your kids get into investing, and there's probably a lot of people that haven't invested themselves other than superannuation. But having a keen interest really will help them develop the skills to be able to get their houses, get investments into shares, potentially they may invest in business or a whole bunch of things. But it's more about spending less than you earn, and hopefully there's a difference to add another tax on. There's if you can get to the position where you put an extra tax on your wage, or think of it like that the money has to go, because you have to pay the ATO, right? Most people do. There's an amount that needs to go to them. If you get an amount or a percentage of your wage and so forth that needs to go to investing, I think kids could be really in good stead if it's 15, 20, 30, just depending on how much they're earning. The more they earn, the more that actually potentially could go to investing.
I read a book, I can't remember what it was, and it was like pay yourself first, and that was for whatever you earn an hour, for the first day of the week, take whatever that sort of works out to be, take that money and put it away. And the next 4 days, whatever you work, 5 days, whatever, that goes to paying the bills, etc. And was trying to teach you to, I think that line was like pay yourself first and like that. And it's like whatever that figures, if you earn $30 an hour and you work 8 hours a week, 8 hours a day, on the first $240 a week, you put that away and the rest of it goes to you. And trying to teach you that sort of money's got to last. The 4 days that you're not paying yourself, that's going, when it's out, it's out.
I think another really good thing about investing, though, it takes the money away. So there's much less reluctance to go and sell the investment, because it'll take a little bit of time to get your money back generally. So you're much more, if you just got money building up in an account, I feel it's a trap for a lot of people. They build up a lot of money in offset accounts. And because it's like the money that they want to use, it's like burning a hole in their pocket saying you want to buy a boat or a car or something, where you get, in an ideal world, you're really trying to get rid of your debt over time and build up your investments. So getting the money away, and it's even showing for kids, getting money away can really help them learn the basics of money.
And all of those things we talked about, they're all that set amount. It's like direct debits and that, so you're not relying on the person to actually send the money there. So everything's automated. And a lot of those micro ones, they're sending you notifications all the time on your phone. You've made this, and because I've used one for my son before, it's, you've made this, and so it does keeps them engaged with it, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on this topic?
I suppose it's just a matter of starting as soon as you can. It's not uncommon for when a child's born that the grandparents want to put money away for them, or like you said, you're putting $100 away for your kid. So it's not uncommon to do it. And I think if you think about it, if you're going to do it for long, if a child's 3 years old and they're going to get the money in the 18, that's 15 years. What could that money do for you if you chose the right investment? So just think about the term, what the money's for, and then make sure you're trying to make the most of that money for them over that time period.
Yeah, I love that idea. It's really because it can be a huge amount of money. And if you actually get everyone to buy in, because so many kids early on especially get a lot of gifts they don't really need, they don't even know about.
Yeah.
So getting money into an investment is for its parents, grandparents, and even when the kids get going and getting a certain amount in there, I think that'll put them in good stead. I think the vehicle has changed since we were kids and so forth. I think there's a lot more options. Educating yourself and exploring those options, what there is, whether you need some professional help or just working out yourself, getting a start over time is just, I think, understanding the tax consequences as well is important, because all the vehicles have different tax scenarios, which you can chat to your accountant about before you go into anything, or seek some financial advice with that. But yeah, that's on that topic. So if you need any help with anything, please feel free to reach out and book in a call. If not, look forward to next week.
Thanks, Dave.
Cheers.